Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, the podcast where Senator Joseph Cryan talks about the latest in New Jersey's 20th Legislative District. This week's guest, President and CEO of Community Food Bank of New Jersey, Elizabeth McCarthy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Cup of Joe. And I'm Joe Cryan, and I'm Senator Joe Cryan, and I'm thrilled to be here today as we have a conversation with Elizabeth McCarthy. Yes, Cryans and McCarthys do share a little bit of the heritage, but along the way, Elizabeth, I'm looking forward to having a conversation. The work of the Community Food Bank here in New Jersey, located here in Hillside, your fight against and the food bank's fight against food insecurity, along with your leadership, celebrating just a couple years, right? Yep. Anniversary just this month, I think. But not only do you have a couple years here with Community Food Bank, but you've got decades of experience in addressing the concerns that literally are all our concerns, things like poverty, equity, and systematic justice. So I appreciate very much you taking the time. And I wanted to take a couple minutes and have folks learn about you. All right, you've got such a diverse background in terms of what you've done in the past and things like that. And we're going to get on to the food bank and,
Yep.
and its incredible mission and all that. But let's take a couple minutes and talk about your background.
Sure. And first, just thanks so much for having me and for highlighting this issue. Really important for people in New Jersey to hear about. So right out of college, I did took the first job I was offered, which was at a Wall Street firm. Worked there a couple years. Never just got excited about it. Like, nice people, learned a lot, but I knew it wasn't my thing. And I had always volunteered a lot, but never really understood that there were jobs doing this kind of work. I mean, that sounds silly, but I didn't know what it was like to be a CEO of a nonprofit or to even to work in city government. So really just started sort of exploring the issues that mattered the most to me and found that New York City government was a place that I could address some of those issues. Got my master's degree, it's an MBA, but in public and nonprofit management with the idea of doing that. Worked in city government for a few years and then have now spent decades in nonprofits in social service areas.
And those challenges had to be great between all those different career types. So today I think we're going to talk a little bit about hunger. We're going to talk a lot about hunger, right? We're going to talk about equity and maybe some of the things the food bank provides that maybe folks don't realize in terms of job training and some long-term impact things as well.
Absolutely.
So let's shift over to the Community Food Bank. Talk to us a little bit about the mission of the bank and what it does, and really kind of give listeners here a feel for it, the jewel that is in Hillside. I think folks sometimes don't know where Terminal Ave is and all that. So maybe take us through a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm from New Jersey. I had heard of the food bank, and so I certainly knew about food distribution, but didn't know about all the programming that was there. And it's really what excited me about it and what made me want to come to work there is that we really see that hunger is usually one issue. It's rarely the only issue that is facing people. So we've really worked to sort of incorporate our food pantries, our soup kitchens with other services. We have about 800 partners in the counties that we serve in New Jersey. Partners meaning food pantries, soup kitchens, child feeding programs. But wherever possible, we co-locate them with other services or have a staff member there who's educated about other services. Because again, someone might be coming to a food pantry today, but they really need job training or they need medical care or they have mental health issues that haven't gone addressed. And so looking at that holistic view of things and moving in that direction more and more is really what made me come to the food bank.
Really? So you brought all that background and were able to see past, not that it's unimportant, but the box of food to the holistic issue.
Yeah, and the box of food is important, don't get me wrong.
Right.
We altogether serve over 90 million meals a year. So the logistical challenges that we face are huge, and that part's been new to me, and I've really actually enjoyed it. How to make truck routing more efficient, how to make the warehouse more efficient has been a great learning curve for me, and it's all connected to the mission. And what I love about the food bank is everyone, whether it is a driver or someone who works in the warehouse, people are there because of the mission. They could be a truck driver anywhere. They like being a truck driver at the Community Food Bank because they're helping people every day. And that's a really special community.
Okay. You just floored me with this statistic. 90 million, can you say it again?
90 million meals a year. And that's doesn't even begin to meet the need. The need in New Jersey, which people think of New Jersey as a fairly wealthy state, over 11% of people in New Jersey are food insecure. And it's not always, what people think of. It's not just people who are homeless or drug addicted. It's families. Most of the people who come to our pantries are working. It's just that their wages have stayed stagnant. Things have gotten more and more expensive. It's just hard to make ends meet.
Yeah, we're talking about two income people.
Often, yes.
Right? People without health insurance.
Yep.
That are looking to save a few dollars.
Yep.
You know, the experience for many of us in this listening audience, during COVID, one of the things that happened at Kane College was often food giveaways, and giveaways isn't fair. But, you know, to help with the insecurity and the issues along with COVID at the time, and folks that sat in a car for an hour and a half with two kids in the car,
Yep.
two young kids waiting, just for a bag of groceries or a couple bags. This isn't the old kind of stereotype I think folks think of. It's their neighbors, is it not?
It absolutely is. And I think COVID did shine a light on that a little bit for people, that they saw that it was people who had, been doing everything right, trying to save money, trying to work hard, all those things, but how quickly that can all go away. And you realize just how many people live paycheck to paycheck. So they might be fine and they're getting by, but then there's a medical emergency or their car breaks down, or, one person in the family might get laid off and they just don't have a safety net. That's a lot of who we're seeing in our sites, is people who they never thought they'd be in line in a pantry.
Yeah, on those COVID lines, people would just they'd have their head down because they had.
Yeah, and we try to get rid of we don't want there to be shame, right? Like anybody who needs food, we hope that they're treated with dignity and respect at our partners who do a great job of that. But yeah, you don't want anybody to ever think twice about coming if they're in need.
11%.
11%.
It's just stunning. 1 out of 10 of us.
1 out of 10. And for some counties, Essex County has over 20% of children are food insecure. I mean, numbers that are really just hard to get your head around, that in 2025, in our society, that we're allowing this to happen.
We used to tease about, for a certain generation, right? If you got punished, you'd have to go to bed without your dinner. Now it's not a punishment. It's just a factor of life for folks.
Exactly.
Yeah. I really want to bring that into focus for folks, because I think the mission of the community food bank, you bring home those stats, 90 million meals. But I really want to follow up a little bit more about your partners before we talk about the food bank itself.
Yep.
We do a lot of work here in the 20th district. For example, St. Joe's Social Services.
Wonderful organization.
There you go. And can you just talk about that a little bit more, about what food insecurity means and those other services? Can you just expand upon it?
Yeah. So when we talk about food insecurity and the difference between that and hunger, because people sometimes say, what is the difference? Well, hunger, we all understand what it means to be hungry, right? Like if you just didn't have time to eat lunch or whatever, it's a feeling. Food insecurity really means that you don't have consistent access to healthy food, so that you don't know where your next meals are coming from. You don't know how you're going to feed your children nutritionally sound meals. And what we see, again, is that it's really helpful to have a place like St. Joe's, where they not only are letting you come in, choose the foods you want, which is really important. You mentioned during COVID getting a bag of groceries. That was a necessity then. But in general, our pantries try to make it a choice model. So somebody comes into the pantry and can pick what they know their kids will eat, what's culturally in there. They might not have ever seen some of the foods in there before. They might want to be able to pick which produce. So it helps with food waste, because people aren't getting things they're not going to eat. But it also just does bring that dignity and that, feeling that they're making the choice of what things that they can, pick from the shelves. So that's wonderful. And then also just at St. Joe's and at other pantries, where someone will meet with the person and sort of say, what brought you here? What other ways can we help? Are there other services we can refer you to? So even, we don't expect everyone to do everything, but they always know about other services that are available. So it's not just food, that people come for food, but we can really give them access to so many other services.
And do you see that link, we talked about it just very briefly, between food insecurity, not just poverty, but social inequality as well? You see that link?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's definitely, the food insecurity is greater among certain groups, people of color, LGBTQ populations, historically disenfranchised populations definitely have a larger impact of food insecurity.
So as you do that, do you look at food access as more of a broader type, especially given your years of experience, right? New York City, sheltering arms. Do you look at it as more of a health and an education workforce issue type of thing? More so.
It's all of the above. It is absolutely a public health issue. There's been a lot of research done, especially for children. even just to be food insecure for a short period of their childhood can have lifelong health and mental health issues. Because they're going to be more prone by not eating nutritionally sound food. They're much more likely to get diabetes or have heart disease. And just the stress of children, if there's stress in the household because the parents, as much as they probably try to shelter their child from it, it's going to trickle down, not knowing where their next meal is coming from. So that impact really does last a lifetime. So we do see food insecurity as a public health issue. And address it that way. But then, of course, it matters about education, whether it's nutrition education or just kids being able to go to school and focus if they're eating properly. I mean, if a kid's hungry, they're not focusing on their math class. And so that's a piece of it. And then workforce development for sure, helping people either find training or jobs or kind of level up if they're already working.
Yeah, I can't help but think of an Ozempic ad now, right, where they all sing and everyone's happy, which is technically directed towards diabetes.
Right.
Right? But everyone's today, the big hot drug and the healthcare issues are all about, the magic of the new weight loss drugs. And yet the reality of it is 1 in 10 of us are food insecure.
Right.
It's a stunning, I really want to follow up on this piece with children in particular, right? Because one of the things every generation wants to do is leave it a little better for the ones behind them, right?
Yep.
And when you don't eat well, when you're not taught proper nutrition, all those sort of things, it just carries over, right?
Absolutely. And unfortunately, for a lot of families, they might want to feed those nutritious foods and things. It's much more expensive often. So honestly, $1 meal at McDonald's, if you're going to be able to get that, feed your kid, they're not going to bed hungry, but they're not getting the kind of nourishment that they need. And I'm not dissing McDonald's, everybody should once in a while, whatever. But if that's all you can afford to feed your kids, they're not getting the kind of nutrition they need for brain development or for just even their physical health.
So we can talk about that though in terms of the average shopper at a grocery store, right? No matter how many coupons there are. Right, these days, fruits, for example, are through the sky.
So expensive, yeah.
And we all talk about the price of eggs. It was a campaign issue last year in the presidential, and yet it remains high without any judgment. But that puts it out of reach of certain folks, I would think.
It absolutely does. So we actually had this thing called the SNAP Challenge where you try to live on $6 a day because that's what the benefit can be as low as $6. And I did it for 3 days, me and my partner, and he was willing. He was a willing participant. So, but to try to shop for the two of us on basically $12 a day, so it was $36 for 3 days, and I couldn't buy any fresh fruit or vegetables. We had frozen spinach, we were eating sort of beans and rice, things like that, and just the mental energy that went into like calculating every penny and figuring it out. And for me, there wasn't much downside. If I went a little over, okay, well, I failed my challenge. But imagine being the way you have to act in the grocery store and the way you have to think about every penny and am I going to have enough to pay this bill and to have my child not have to go to bed hungry. It's really, really difficult.
And you're not buying the Premier brand.
Definitely not when you're living on that. And I have a 19-year-old son. If he had been home when I did this challenge, I would not have been able to do it. He eats so much.
I hear you. So understanding that we have such a large issue here as a society and right here in Union County in the 20th District, really want to kind of shift a little bit and talk about the Hillside headquarters, the work of the food bank. You mentioned some of the incredible staff. And then the 90 million meals is such
it's a big number.
It's a big number. But talk to us a little bit, the size, the amount that goes in, how does food get there? What are the current issues? Kind of take a few minutes and take us through.
It's when people haven't seen it or even when they've just seen the outside, they don't really get a sense of the size. So it's about the size of 3 football fields. Inside. And a lot of that is sort of typical warehouse, what you would think, seeing, non-perishable foods. But there's also a huge amount of cold storage because more and more in recent years, what we're distributing is fresh produce and frozen and fresh proteins. So about 35% of what we distribute is fresh produce. And that's a big change from food banks of even 10 years ago. But to try to get that healthy food out there. So you'd see huge warehouse with a lot of cold storage. You'd also see an industrial kitchen because we make meals there as well for child feeding programs and for senior feeding programs. So they're made in our kitchen, packaged up, sent out to after-school programs or to senior housing. And also we do workforce development there. So we have a culinary training program that takes place in our kitchen. And these are also all places that people can volunteer. So that's a great thing to know, too. And then the other part is there's a whole section where our donations come in. So we get donations, whether like your church or your school might do a food drive, but also huge donations from producers, from, places like Wakefern and ShopRite and grocery stores that donate food to us. And once it comes in, it has to be sorted. So people have to go through, figure out, what goes in what bin and all of that. And for produce, we get huge amounts of produce donated. It has to be sorted very quickly because it has to get in and out the same day pretty much in order to get to the pantries while it's still fresh. So it's quite an operation. If you come volunteer, there's about 6 or 7 different tasks you could be assigned, but you'd kind of see the whole operation, and it's pretty impressive the first time you see it.
I've been a sorter there and
Yep.
a volunteer, and so many of people have volunteered.
Yeah.
Why don't we just take a moment now and talk about how folks, if they can hear our voice, how they could volunteer at the food bank.
Yeah, it's very easy. You do have to sign up in advance, but if you go to our website, which is CFBNJ for Community Food Bank of New Jersey, cfbnj.org/volunteer. And you can sign up for one shift, just one person if you want. You don't have to have a group. Or you can sign up, we've had like sports teams come or fraternities or companies. It's a big thing for a lot of companies, especially in the summer when they have interns working and everything and kind of want to do some team building. So you can sign up for a shift. And again, you could be assigned one of the big jobs we give, especially to kids, is scooping pasta. We get pasta in these enormous, 6-foot-high boxes, and it has to be scooped into bags. They have to wear hairnets and gloves, which they don't always love, but scooped into bags, weighed, measured, and then boxed up to send out to pantries. You could be inspecting produce. You could be making meals. We don't usually do that to people the first time they come, but if they express an interest, you could be in the kitchen and actually making meals that are going to go directly out to feed your neighbors. So it's a very concrete and satisfying way to volunteer because you really see exactly what impact you're going to make for somebody. And again, you can sign up for one shift, or we have people who come 4 days a week. It runs the gamut.
God bless them. I know it also can tend to be, at least in my times there, I've generally been in box loading. Mm-hmm. And it gets a little competitive, I noticed,
it
among
does.
folks that do.
Our staff try to make it competitive. It keeps people motivated and keeps them moving fast, and they're working towards a goal. But it's fun. They like to play music, play games, especially when kids come, kind of make it a fun experience so that they'll want to come back.
It's a very rewarding experience.
It is.
Too. You help somebody. So 3 football fields. You're making meals. A quick story I want to tell because I was the chair of the Assembly Education Committee and toured a school in Newark with this magnificent principal who knew every kid's name.
Wow.
Right. I was there in October, and she knew everybody coming in an old school that was well kept and clean, and just was an environment that was just right. And I said to her, well, "Are we going in after the last of the children came in?" She said, "No." I said, "Look over there," and she pointed to one of the high rises. She said, "I haven't seen anybody yet from the 13th or the higher floors. That tells me the elevator's broken."
Oh, wow.
Right? So didn't need, okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep it open because we got to make sure that these kids get their breakfast because they can't learn.
Amazing.
Right? And sure enough, 6-7 minutes later.
After they walk down all those flights of stairs.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. And by the way, nobody with their head shaking. And, I know they're young kids, but nobody with their head shaking. The elevator's broken again. Just a big, bright good morning.
Yeah.
And we're clearly hungry.
Right. But also, it sounds like she created such a welcoming environment that
it's one of those things, but you realize hunger matters. Right?
Absolutely. And that's why some families struggle in the summer because their children aren't in school and getting those meals. So luckily, if they're eligible for school meals, they're also eligible for a summer EBT card. So it just gives them a little extra money to spend on food only, that they can use in grocery stores for their families during the summer.
Okay. Yeah. So 90 million meals means a whole lot of donations, as you mentioned a little bit. But I really want to explore this a little bit. You get the Community Food Bank receives funding, but it's had some struggles lately.
Yes.
With the federal government, and still has a great deal. You mentioned some of them between Wakefern and ShopRite, the ones that are such an established group here that matter. But talk to us a little bit more about, what is the current situation with government and the overall. And what is it on the corporate level, and maybe talk to us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So our food comes from 3 different sources. We do get food directly from the federal government. We get donated food, and then we purchase food. Luckily, because we're so large and are buying so much, we can get pretty good prices. So we do purchase to make up the difference. Our federal food has decreased about 25% in the last 6 months.
25%.
But demand has not gone down. So we committed to our partners that at least for this, our fiscal year started July 1st, at least for this coming fiscal year, we will keep our distribution steady. But that means we had to make up that difference with purchased and donated food. And our donors have been amazing. They're trying to do more, and we are, prepared to purchase more food. So it's really a combination of those three, but we don't want to pass along the decrease that we've seen to pantries because we think they need it more than ever. And so really don't want to cut back on that if we don't have to. So at least for this fiscal year, we are planning to still do that 90 million meals.
I was at a food pantry the other day where the lady who runs it just simply said we run out far faster.
Yes. Yeah, and we're hearing that from a lot of places. So really trying to do our part and keep that up. But the other thing is, the cuts to SNAP could really cause demand to go up dramatically, because for every meal, as many meals as we provide, SNAP provides 7 for every one that we do. Like, people are actually using SNAP to purchase the other meals. So it's, a whole scale difference. So if more people are cut off from SNAP eventually over the next couple of years, it will definitely mean more stress on the pantry system.
Elizabeth, can you expand on that a little bit? So the SNAP program for folks, maybe just...
Yeah, so the SNAP program, part of the big reconciliation bill, was a very large cut to SNAP, which will really impact people in New Jersey and every state. Partly work requirements, and, good faith people can argue about work requirements. I'm not saying it's bad for people to work, but the system, unfortunately, of SNAP, it's a very hard system to sort of stay compliant with. So if you have to work 20 hours a week and you miss a week of work, that will sort of count against you. Plus, they have to upload a tremendous amount of documents, which, it's not easy for everyone. Like, I think those of us that are on computers all the time, like, that doesn't sound like a big deal. But people who don't have Wi-Fi at home might not even have a computer, might just use their phone. Proving that they've worked and consistently can be very tough. And a lot of people have seasonal work. That's not taken into account. If you're like a gig economy person and you have some time, and if you don't meet the requirements for 3 months, you can't even apply again for 3 years. So it feels like a very punitive system. And so we're just doing our best to educate people about that and help them where we can, be compliant and be able to keep their benefits. Because, it might be the person who's not meeting the work requirements, but their children are going to suffer too. And again, it's not nothing against work. It's just about sort of all the paperwork it takes and everything that it will take for people to remain compliant.
And to be candid, working people are on SNAP.
Absolutely. 85% of people on SNAP are working. Some have disabilities, some have minor, very small children at home. So this is not a population that's, just sitting around watching TV and collecting SNAP. Frankly, it's not enough money to make it worth that.
Right. It's a candid discussion here, right? It's passed, it's law, but this caricature of folks, sitting home having popcorn on the TV, we're talking about your server at the diner. We're talking about the folks that clean your hotel room. We're talking about, the folks that allow other parts of the economy in many ways to actually function are folks here that are impacted.
Absolutely.
Folks that don't own an iMac.
Yep.
Okay, this isn't a simple thing. And, I think that 85% stat is as important as any other statistics that can come out of here. That's who we're impacting.
Absolutely. And so, again, we're really trying to say, okay, like you said, the law's been passed, we have to work with it. And so just trying to think, how do we educate people? How do we get out there? We do have staff who go out and help people apply for SNAP. So thinking about retooling some of that, how do they help people learn about the new way to stay compliant, all the new hoops that they might have to jump through to get it. So we feel like we have a pretty daunting task, but, we're up to it.
Well, so you're able to be flexible in the mission as well.
Absolutely. We have to be.
Okay. So being flexible in that also requires just a tremendous amount of partnerships. You mentioned over 800 partners.
Yeah.
I'd really love if you could talk a little bit more, maybe about local organizations. We mentioned one, but maybe local organizations, maybe schools, a little bit, municipalities. Can you talk a little bit more and kind of explain to folks how that works?
Yeah, and it's a wide range. I've certainly not been to all 800, but I've been to a lot of our partners. And some are, we work with the Boys and Girls Clubs in a lot of places. I live in Jersey City. There's a Boys and Girls Club in Jersey City. We do meals for them. During the school year, it's a meal during the after-school program. Because we were finding that kids would get breakfast and lunch at school, but then really wouldn't eat again sometimes until the next morning when they come for breakfast. So here, if they're going to an after-school program, before they go home, they get another meal served right there. Some of them are made right in our kitchen, and we do taste tests and let them weigh in on what they like, and it's great to hear them. They'll tell you, believe me, they get a lot of feedback on the food. So that's one model. We have pantries like a St. Joseph's, like Grace and Summit, like Kumac and Passaic County, places that are really these choice models that really offer other services as well, which is wonderful. But then you also have really small pantries. It might be a church that, once a month is helping their parishioners and other people in the community. So they just set up tables outside, kind of have a food distribution there. So it really runs the gamut. And that's important because not everyone's comfortable going to, a big place, or it's, they might want to only go to the church where they know people speak their language, where they know that people are looking out for them. And so it really matters that we have a whole bunch of different kinds of partners so that there's kind of something for everyone. We don't want anyone to avoid going to a pantry and just stay home and not have enough food.
So when you do that, do you have partners in government as well?
We work very closely with the county governments, yeah. In certain counties, like Middlesex County, actually their food kind of redistributor is actually county employees, so they've kind of worked it into their county. Bergen County has a food security advocate who works for the county and helps coordinate a lot of services. So New Jersey's unique in how county-based it is compared to a lot of other states, but it can be good because they sort of know their populations and what's needed in different pockets.
Okay. And how about the state?
Honestly, we are so lucky to live in New Jersey, and I've, say that to the governor, I've said that to the speaker, because when I talk to food banks in other states, they don't get the kind of support that we get from the state of New Jersey. They have really kept food insecurity as a top priority. And so made sure, we do get a large piece of our funding is from the state of New Jersey. Most of that goes to food purchasing, but can also be to help invest in some of our partners. So if we have a pantry that wants to do more, wants to feed more people, but can't do produce because they don't have refrigeration, we can help by giving them a small grant for refrigerators. If they could go pick up donations places, if they only had, a van or something, we can help with vehicles. And that's all through the partnership with the state of New Jersey.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, it really, I tell people that all the time. We are very lucky.
Yeah, St. Joe's we were cut a ribbon less than a year ago on the new fridge. And the ability to, and for folks to be able to select coats and clothes that they need as well.
Yeah, a lot of the pantries do those other services too, which is great. The ones that have the room to do it, and the volunteers, they have a lot of volunteers too.
They do, and here in the town of Union, we have a group, the Andersons, who do Meet the Need, and are up on Springfield Avenue, and they're just, frankly, like yourself, they're angels among us, that just come in and give back so much, but they're, for lack of a better way to put it, they have a regular clientele.
Yeah. Because
those folks are comfortable, right? And these are the same folks that they're hustling, they're working, and they're on an economy that maybe has forgotten a little bit of them too.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of our pantries see that they might see themselves as a food pantry, but they're the trusted person. So when something else goes wrong in someone's life, that is where they come. So it's great that they really kind of see themselves as providing access to lots of other services.
Okay. So when folks think about in moving this, so if you wanted folks to have an image of the community food bank, besides that incredible entrance coming in on a terminal, right off 22, by the way, could not be easier.
Very easy to get to.
Very easy to get to. What would you like them? What would you like that initial image to be to come to their mind?
I think that it's really about, getting people food today, which is a huge part of it, but that we are looking at the longer term solutions as well. So I mentioned the culinary job training program. We also have a job training program for people to work in warehouses. So they learn how to use a pallet jack and a forklift and things where you can go work at, Amazon or Home Depot or something. And for both of those programs, we really try to focus on people who've had trouble getting employed. So sometimes it's people with a criminal justice background. Sometimes it's people who just for any reason have had a break in their employment. Really giving them a certification, a reference, so that they're easier to employ. Because we know anyone with a criminal justice background, the quickest way to stop recidivism is for them to work. So really want to try to get people to work, give people that second chance. And some of them come to work for us. We certainly hire from that pool, but otherwise we help them find employment out in their community.
A lot of forklifts.
A lot of forklifts, a lot of
Yes.
beeping. Yeah, if you're walking around the food bank, you have to be careful. You hear a lot of beeping going on.
And not a lot of mercy if you're in the
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
I will say that. It doesn't matter what your background is, get out of the way.
Get out of the way. I know my place, and I get out of the way.
So, and in being there, having the privilege of being there before, fair amount of youth.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a little bit more.
I think it's a great place for kids to volunteer because, so to volunteer, you have to be 12 or older, but we do have junior volunteer days where we have kids as young as 6 who can come. And it's just such a concrete way to teach your kids about what it means to have people around who are hungry and how you can help, that even a 6-year-old can help somebody else. And I don't think kids always know that, and that it's not, hunger doesn't look like what they might think it looks like. It might be that there's a kid on their soccer team who is food insecure and you would never know. Again, because it might be that their parents are working or things are going okay for a while and then they go wrong. So we kind of try, when we have kids especially, we give a little lesson about what food insecurity means, but then really we put them to work and just explain to them that that food is going to help another family in their community. And it's really just a really wonderful way to give back, a wonderful way to learn about the issue. Our volunteer groups often, do drives and bring food when they come. But we have like sports teams, a lot of the teams from Summit and Westfield and lots of other towns around here. They all come and volunteer. Sometimes they'll do diaper drives or period product drives because those are things that we also distribute in our pantries. And it's a team building thing. People feel good about themselves when they leave. And it's a real concrete way. And frankly, for us, it's crucial. Like, this is not just a nice thing. We have 90,000 volunteer hours in a year. That's like 40 people that we would have to hire or that we would have to have some way to sort everything, to box things up. And so we rely on volunteers. Like, it really is a part of our operation. So I think that, too, makes people feel like, it's important that what they're doing, and it's not just sort of a nice way to spend a couple hours. You're actually really helping.
Well, it's very real, but it's also very organized.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, and people will tell you, right? I volunteered, but I got there at 8. They told me to be there, and nothing happened until after 9, and people get frustrated. That is not the case.
We try to keep it moving. Yeah, absolutely. We want to, you can have a cup of coffee, relax for a couple minutes, but we're going to put you to work pretty quickly.
Pretty fast.
Yeah.
So let's remind folks again, how can they be part of the special experience of giving back their time and bringing their families and maybe teaching the young ones a little bit early about how lucky we all are?
Yeah, the best way is to go to our website. So it's CFBNJ.org, and there's a volunteer section, and you can go in and just sign up for a shift for you and your family. If you have a large group or a corporate group, there's a phone number there that you can call, and we'll set up a group. Because some companies come, and if they're bringing 100 people, they're taking up an entire shift, which is great. So they come, they then talk about competitive. Some of these teams come, and they're very competitive with each other. Some of them then will, have our kitchen make them lunch, the corporate groups, and so there's really, you can kind of make a day out of it, which is nice. And then if people can't volunteer there, or we have a pantry in Bergen County that we run ourselves, so not through a partner, because we had a gap in Bergen County and saw there was a place that needed a pantry, and so in Garfield about a year ago we opened a pantry. Some people prefer to volunteer there, where they're actually helping somebody shop for food in the pantry. Okay. Down in Egg Harbor Township, same thing. We have another pantry down there. So there's really a wide range. And then if someone wants to find a volunteer opportunity closer to home, if they're in a western part of New Jersey or somewhere kind of farther away, our website actually helps connect to our partners. So it'll say which partners need volunteers also. So if you live in Morris County and don't want to take the drive to Hillside, we can find you a place to volunteer in Morris County.
Okay. And if your lifestyle is such that you want to be part of what Community Food Bank does, but volunteerism isn't your thing, there's a financial way to donate as well.
Absolutely, and we have so many generous donors. It's really kind of amazing. And we do, as I said, we do have to purchase more and more food. We do have really good buying power. So as much as, food drives are great, I'm not telling anybody not to do a food drive, but a cash donation does go a little further because we have such buying power to buy things at, in bulk. So people do that all the time. We'll have people who are, getting married, or if somebody in their family passes away and they ask for donations to be made to the food bank. That's really lovely. Corporations certainly help us with grants. But also people will do a drive, put a box on their front porch and, let their neighbors know I'm collecting food and I'm going to bring it by. And people will, just do kind of small scale things. And as I mentioned, diapers are a big one for that also. So there's countless ways to get involved.
90 million meals.
90 million meals. Yeah, I know. It really is an impressive number. And again, we're not meeting all the need yet. So there's still more room to grow.
Well, that opportunity to grow is in part because of your leadership.
Thank
And you've really transitioned the community food bank into not only the new definition of food insecurity, which is just a lot more than just food insecurity itself, but your background and your experience and your passion have allowed us to do that.
I feel so fortunate to work there. I mean, it really is just an amazing group. The board is amazing, the staff, it's really, and all of our community partners. So it's going to take all of us to attack hunger. So we're in it together.
Well, I think it's safe to say one of New Jersey's treasures that we're very fortunate to have. That's been a Cup of Joe with Elizabeth McCarthy and the great work that's being done by the Community Food Bank. If you're not sure what to do, whether it's a gift, whether it's a birthday, whether it's just your time, you want to feel good about yourself and about helping others in a way that's incredibly special and maybe no more important than a meal for a child, please get involved. The Community Food Bank of New Jersey. Thanks, everybody, for listening to another Cup of Joe. Elizabeth.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we owe you a lot, and we thank you very much.
We appreciate your highlighting the issue. It's really important.
We'll see you on the next Cup of Joe.
That's a wrap on this episode of A Cup of Joe, hosted by Senator Joseph Cryan. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you again for another cup.